Good morning, hello and welcome to Middle Earth Readings. Today is Monday the 14th of February, so happy Valentine's Day for those of you who are celebrating with somebody that they love and those of you who are celebrating self-love as well. There's a suggestion that Saint Valentine may, and this is a May, a very big May, be related to the god Vali, who's one of Odin's sons, who fulfills his entire fate within the first 2 days of his life and then goes on to, in my view, in the work that I've done with him, to embrace his own destiny, to create and embrace his own destiny. So whenever we have Valentine's Day, I always think about that. I think about, that we get to choose, we get to, what are the things that we desire and want to do with our lives that feel good and pleasurable. So happy Valentine's Day to you. Now, before we get started with looking at our what's happening with the movements of the planets through the runic wheel and looking at your rune of the week, which please do share. I can see that Suzanne has already shared and that Jojo has shared through Suzanne as well. So pop in the chat box for what your runes are and we will look at them. But before we do that, I wanted to just reflect on some questions that came up. I ran a masterclass on Friday with about 30 people looking at birth runes and runic astrology. So it was an introductory session. If you missed it and you're thinking, oh, I missed it, we're doing it again on the Monday the 21st of February, so you haven't missed your chance and you can join. But I had some questions come up which I thought it would be helpful to share the responses to in this video. And by the way, if you can hear a sound, it is a kitten knocking Lego about all over the floor. This is what happens when you have small children and kittens at the same time. So the questions that I had were around where do I go for further reading? What are my next steps? How do I find out what my birth runes are? How do I find out more about the system? So the system comes from a combination of work done by Freya Aswin and Nigel Pennick, both of who are writing at a similar time. And Pennick actually, he draws on Freya Aswin's work, and he wrote a book called Runic Astrology, Starcraft and Timekeeping in the Northern Tradition. Now it's quite a dense volume and it is out of print and it can be very expensive to purchase. So if you are lucky enough to find a second-hand volume at a reasonable price, I would nab it. But it's worth saying that it's a really interesting read and it talks a lot about timekeeping, timekeeping in the Northern Tradition, the importance of the stars, the importance of time. And there's a section on runic astrology. But I think it's fair to say that it took me about a week to really read everything and backtrack through what he was sharing in the book to work out how were all the calculations done. Now, how would I go about making those calculations? How would I find a star chart from today? Maybe sort of go to the zodiac system and work out what the equivalences were. So it's not easy, and I don't want to make any promises to you that if you've got that book, it provides you with a sort of, a kit to work out all of your birth runes. So by all means get the book, but I have provided some additional resources based on all of the work that I've done over the years with this. So for your calculations, you can look at the Magan Rose website under, I think it's under birth runes, and it gives you a little bit about calculating your sun rune and your birth hour. Not like totally exact because of cusps for the sun runes and because the sharings that are on those web pages relate to the clock hour. So imagining that, we're using the 24-hour clock where all of the hours are equal. Whereas Pennick, I think very rightly in his system, notes that the hours wouldn't have been calculated in that way because people would have used sundials. They would have calculated from sunset onwards to the next sunset. So in the Northern Tradition, the day was thought to start, when the sun set, which I think is quite nice. So when I do these calculations for people, when we do our birth rune reports for them, we do it based on the sun hour, not on the clock hour. And all of the feedback that I've had in my own experience is that tends to be more accurate in terms of people's resonance with their Norn's gift, with their birth hour rune. So you've got some simple things there, and they will work well for you as a starter on the website. If you are somebody who's a bit mathematically inclined and you don't mind going, yeah, I'm happy, I'm going to spend like 2-3 hours calculating my birth runes and working through them myself, then we have the Birth Runes Self-Calculation Kit, which is in our Inner Circle membership. So if you're thinking, oh, you know, I'm happy to do that, it's £15 for a month of membership. So you can go in, you can do a one-off payment, or you can say, actually, I love the Inner Circle, I'm going to stay. And it'll be £15, you know, for each month. But you can go in, you can find the self-calculation kit, and you can use that to calculate for yourself. If you think to yourself, I'm not mathematically minded and this is going to hurt my brain, or I just want somebody else to do it for me, or actually I'd really like to know what this means as well, because we do give some, you know, we give some indicators in the Birth Runes kit, but you know, it's a lot of study to work out what, you know, each of the runes means in each planet. So if you come and you get your runes calculated with us, we will do a lovely report for you. It's normally about 23-24 pages of text taking you through the runes, what each one means, and you've got all of those done for you. So you can do that, and in our shop you can go and you can buy your report. And if you do that, you will also get our planetary guide, which is a guide to the planets and what they mean, and our mini guide to the moon as well, so you can look at the moon stuff. So that's how it gives you more, and that's very much based, particularly the planetary guide, that's based on Pennick's work. So that is there. Those two guides are also in the Inner Circle resources. So if you're a member of the Inner Circle, you get those two guides, even if you don't want to work on your birth runes. The only other thing to say is, if you think to yourself, okay, you know, this is great, and I've got my delicious birth runes report, hooray, and I've been reading it and finding out about it, and you're thinking, I want to go a bit deeper, you can book a one-to-one session and you can have a debrief on what your birth runes mean. Maybe you want to look in one in particular, and you want to sort of be supported in doing that, perhaps doing some journeying or meditation, as well as, you know, just saying, what does this mean? I don't understand. You can book a one-to-one session, or you can come on our Birth Runes Soul Journey program, which is a really supported deep dive into all of your birth runes, what they mean, getting much more into the energies behind them, and thinking about it in terms of, you know, how do I want to work with them moving forward. So just wanted to bring that in because I had some questions about it. So I hope that has been helpful. If you still have any questions, please do let me know. Let me see then. So we have two movements this week, as well as Valentine's Day. So we have a full moon in Anzus. So that's you know, the rune of Odin, very much about expression. It's all about self-expression. However you want to express yourself, you know, through voice, through dance, through poetry, through journaling, through just saying what you think. It's honouring that, bringing forth intentions and speaking them is really powerful at this point. You know, we have Mani, who is very much a witness. He's a god, he loves humanity, so he's there, you know, with the chariot of the moon, looking down on us and saying, you know, tell me about yourselves. You know, he's there, he's witnessing our journey, and he is deeply empathic, deeply sympathetic deity. So if you want to make oaths, Mani is a great one for witnessing. You can use your full moon rites or your new moon rites for those sorts of things, to say, you know, I'm going to do a symbol right now. It's lovely to do it at the moon and think, you know, Mani, witness what I'm doing. And with the Anzus energy, the rune of Odin, of the voice, of expression coming through as well, voicing those things out loud, voicing intentions is doubly powerful at this point. So partially it's about, you can take it one of two ways. You can take it as play, you know, I'm playing with self-expression, I'm playing with dance, I'm playing with poetry. Or you can take it as I'm uttering, you know, into being, you know, particularly if you're working with us on the Wayland work that we're doing at the moment in the hearth space around creation and destruction. You might think about, you know, what am I creating through my words and my intentions at the moment. It's a really lovely full moon energy for us to work with. And then on the 18th we're going to move into Noatung, which is Njord's hall. So Njord is a member of the Vanir, a member of the earth gods. He is said to be very much associated with the fertile lands and the fertile waters. Noatung, his hall, is almost thought of being like a safe harbour. Imagine all of these boats coming in, you know, filled with goods and plenty, and the fishermen calling on Njord and saying, you know, will you bless us as we go out? And they come back with all the fish. There's lots of bounty, lots of plenty coming through with work with Njord and his hall. So I wanted to share with you a little working that I've been doing, that I'm going to be continuing to do, and asking Njord for support with, and Aegir, who I'll come to in a moment, which I've been finding particularly helpful, because in general I've been finding the energy of the moment like very potent, but also quite challenging and quite choppy. You know, there are these underlying currents coming through, you know, still with the Perthro paradigm and those deep planets, Urd's chariot, Hela's chariot, Aegir's chariot, drawing out old stuff, which can be difficult, and challenging us to step into a new paradigm, to be the heroes, you know, to take the steps of the heroic journey, even though it's really hard sometimes. And there's a lot of healing, and often uncomfortable healing, happening at the moment. So I've been working with Njord, imagining myself seated on a beach, or at an estuary is quite nice as well, somewhere there's tidal waters, and just working on the basis of imagining, you know, every time a thought comes into my mind, or, you know, something that I'm finding difficult, imagining that I form it into a little light, and then I set it into the water, and as the waves recede, they draw those lights out of the fertile shores that Njord holds, and into the waters of Aegir. Now, Aegir is the god of the deep waters, and Aegir's chariot, very associated with the subconscious, and with those deep waters of Weird, going even deeper than Urthusbrunn, the well of Weird, even deeper than Mimirsbrunn, the well of Mimir, where we can get wisdom, even deeper than Fergangir, the boiling kettle of the very, very deeps. You know, that we can allow these thoughts, these threads of consciousness that are often, you know, they're in there. Sometimes they're not ours, sometimes they are ours, and we're just like, you know, but they're not serving me. So just release them as light and see them go back into the waters. And Aegir's hall is said to not have any flames. It's said to be lit with gold. And I like to think that in the right place, these stories that we have about ourselves, or these things that, you know, the past, it's almost like an offering to the sea. You know, the Aegir and his wife and their daughters love to receive story. So we send those to them, we just release it, and the tide takes it away, and then you imagine the tide coming back in with the bountiful, fertilising, blessing waters of Njord. So I'm ready to be filled with something new, something that's better for me. And then I just watch the waters and see these little trail of golden lights slowly sailing out to sea. And then I'd sit just in meditation, breathing, watching the sea, moving in and out. And then if another, you know, intrusive thought comes through, see it in the light, place it in the light, put it back into the water. So I wanted to offer that to you as something that you might find helpful through the coming weeks. We'll be in Noatun in Njord's Hall for about a month. So let's see where we are. Hi Marie, hi Suzanne. So you have Wunyo, Suzanne, which is really lovely with the Ansu's full moon. Really brings that energy of Odin in very strongly. There is a connection that I can feel there with Njord as well. If you think about the Vanir, these sort of like earth magics, but earth magics that tie us into the Fae and the elves. They're quite light and ethereal, as well as that sort of deep earth energy too. So it's sort of maintaining that balance of being able to feel the deep energies of the earth and yet maintain our lightness. That, you know, I was talking about with the idea of seeing these almost like little balls of light that I was imagining. They were like I suppose a little bit like people when they celebrate Diwali and they have the little clay pots, but they were just light, you know, because I was like, I'm not going to litter the sea with my with my stuff. I'm just going to see it as lights coming through. allowing yourself to just say, yeah, and I let it go. No, I don't need to know the why or the how or anything like that. I'm just going to let it go and let it go out into the light, is what I'm feeling for you. Jojo has manas, so we've got more of a weight to self with the manas, in that sense of moving into sovereignty, moving into sovereign identity. So for you, Jojo, I would be looking to harness the energies of this week more with the full moon in Ansus, to think about, what are my intentions moving forward? What do I need to take responsibility for? Just sort of looking back and saying, there is a difference between us critiquing ourselves or judging ourselves and saying, oh, I did this wrong, or I regret that, or anything like that, and just saying, that happened. It happened, or I did it, and I'm moving forward. Is that with that's very much the sense of what a sovereign needs to do, that they can't live in the place of regret or guilt or second guessing, or is this the right way? They just say, I make my decisions, and then we move forward. So that's coming through for me quite strongly. It's sort of saying, okay, I look back on the past and I do it from the place of sovereignty. You could think about Odin seated upon the great high seat with Hugin and Munin, thought and memory coming and bringing all of these thoughts and memories now, and he's there and he's saying, I will integrate that, but I will not become overwhelmed by what I'm hearing, by all of the stories and the thoughts and everything that are coming through from Hugin and Munin from across the worlds. I will select in a discerning way by listening to my body and my heart and my instincts what is right, and then I will move forward, and I'll do so without judgment, because a sovereign can only, we can't judge ourselves, because otherwise we become, what's the word I'm looking for? There's something that I'm not saying, which is why I'm gabbling at you now. The sovereign can't become weighed down by the weight of the throne and the crown. They have to know that they're always strong enough to carry it. And that means sometimes just letting go and saying, it's done. Marie, you've got Feyu. Ooh, lovely Feyu energy. So this for me is, again, if you want to connect in, very much connecting in with Njord as a god of bounty and plenty, connecting in with the sea and the deeps coming through, and remembering our ancestors who saw amber. They often thought that it came from the sea, because trees would fall, they would go into the waters, the wood would disintegrate, and the sap, the solid sap, would be left, and it would come up, so like Baltic amber, comes up from the sea. It was known as sort of Freya's tears, this idea of them somehow mingling with the water, and it's very much connecting in with that Feyu energy of wealth, sort of potency, fertile energy. Perhaps also looking at the past and going, I have attracted wealth to me. I have attracted plenty to me. Not necessarily about saying, this is how I did it. It's just energetically recognizing that you already have that ability, and that when we can connect into that sense of a free flow of Feyu wealth energy, which includes health and well-being. It's not just like gold, it is also nourishment. It's really allowing that Feyu energy to enter your body, enter your sort of intellectual consciousness, your emotions, and just saying, all this I know how to do. I have mastery of this, whether it's in this lifetime or a past lifetime, and just really trusting that. Perhaps again, thinking about that meditation that I offered and thinking, what can I do for myself to really feel into the energy of Feyu moving through my body, and trusting that it will move, and that even if there are blocks there, knowing that those blocks weren't always there, and that your body knows how to remember what it felt like when the wealth flowed. So I hope that's helpful for you, Maria, but it's very much that sense of working energetically with Feyu. Erica, you have manas as well, so I'm going to direct you to what I said to Jojo around that sovereignty and that distinction between responsibility and judgment. That I take responsibility, but I'm not going to judge myself with the weight of all of the criticism. I'm standing in my power, and I'm recognizing that sometimes I take fantastic decisions, sometimes I take good decisions, sometimes I take bad decisions, but the important thing for the sovereign is that they take the decisions. You know, we take the decisions and we move forward with them, and then we say, yeah, I've taken that. What's going to happen next? You know, is what I'm feeling there. Rima, Ansu's for you. Oh, so that's really lovely that you've got that as we come up and get our full moon into Ansu's. So again, that very Adinic, I'm feeling breath work for you might be important in that sense of how can I connect even more deeply with the Ansu's rune at this time. Maybe going and listening to the YouTube video that I've done about Ansu's and having a little feel into that. There's a wildness that I'm feeling as well. So Ansu's is an interesting rune because people often go with, oh, it's a rune of communication. But really it's an energetic flow. And Ansu's has the capability to be that wild, ecstatic energy of Odin and the wild hunt, travelling across the sky, you know, sort of the pace going and things like, you know, the shamanic ecstasy that we get. All of that's in Ansu's, but it's also the ordering principle. You know, I have an idea, I speak it, and it comes into being, and Ansu's connects with the Manaz rune then, and it becomes the, you know, I speak the intention, I stand at the throne, you know, Haganin Munin come. The Ansu's rune is the energy of Haganin Munin coming, and then with the Manaz rune it combines into intention. So feeling into that and going, okay, how does that work for me in terms of when do I need to be in that wild and, you know, out on the moorlands, or, you know, in nature, or feeling the wind on my back, or, you know, reading poetry, or writing poetry. You know, when do I need to be in that state, and when do I need to be in that I am now from that place where I know my wildness, you know, that I've been anchored into my wild nature through the Ansu's rune. What do I then bring forward for the world to leave that a legacy of renewing Ansu's energy, the wisdom of Ansu's coming through? So how do you bring that wisdom that then flows from within you out into the world? Lisa, I celebrate Lupercalia. Aha! Bacano this morning. Oh, I'm feeling a link between Bacano and Lupercalia now. Why is that? Maybe I'm just thinking a bit Loki-esque. I'm gonna follow that thread with Loki coming through, of Bacano as being not just the rune of the Divine Mother, which people often focus in and they connect with that side, but it is a rune that's very strongly linked with Loki, and the idea of the shapeshifter. So there's a little bit of mischief that goes on there. Think of the birch tree that the Bacano rune links to, cats. With the leaves, those shimmering leaves that you get, you know, when the wind ripples through birch leaves and they sort of they just shimmer and they look very ephemeral, and Loki like hiding in the birch tree with this ability to shift his form or to be perceived in a particular way. And Bacano helps us to work with our hide. So we've got our physical body, and then what you might refer to as the energetic body. But in the Northern tradition, yes, it was about the energetic body. But the way that it was described to me, and I was like, oh, that makes sense, is that the energetic body was perceived as being almost like the memory that you would leave with others. That sense, you know how some people, they have that like glamour, that presence, and you're like, how do they have that? You know, where's that coming from? And it was about working with your hide, working with your energetic body. And the idea that, yes, we can be in charge of them, but we can allow other people to become, to influence our energetic body as well. So, example I always give to people I talk about, you know, with my dad had a moustache, you know, for many, many years. He had this moustache, and everyone in the family, you know, when you saw him, you know, you have an idea of a loved one, and you draw them in a particular way, and we always draw him with little round glasses and a moustache. My dad has not had a moustache for years, nor has he had little round glasses for years. But whenever he is drawn by a family member, that is how we draw him, because we see his energy body and his hide in that way. And there are some people, particularly if you work magically and energetically, that we can work with our hide, you know, to be, I know some people, great witches who are, let's say, a little bit short, but they don't seem it, and no one knows it, because they seem huge, because they work with their hide. So I think that that's what's being called to you there, Lisa, is to work with your energy body and think about, what am I projecting? What presence am I projecting? What energy is coming from me? We were talking about sovereign identity. So we can think about that as well. What does it mean for me before I speak or move, to feel myself in sovereign presence? Those of you who've done priestess work or any form of circle work will know that sense of, I ground myself into presence, and some people imagine themselves, with a crown or with a robe or whatever it is, and then you move forward and you speak and you utter and you do those things. So that's where I'm coming from for you, Lisa. Suzanne, it was so good. Thank you for the masterclass. Hooray, well, thank you. And Erica also says the masterclass was insightful and the shamanic journey was amazingly deep. Wonderful, that's great. Oh, I've got loads of you. Cheryl's also saying I enjoyed the masterclass. And you have Tewaz, Cheryl. So Tewaz, I think, again, is linking in with the sea and the water and Njord. It's drawing you into the deeper waters. So I'm seeing Tewaz in this instance a bit, there's a bit of Suelo energy coming forward there too for me with your Tewaz. So I'm thinking about Tewaz as the star, the guiding star, which is one of its lesser known attributes, that Tewaz, one of the words that it was considered to be was star. That imagine that there is a guiding star, and for me it's about connecting with that, that it's trusting those impulses, those calling forth, those calling forth moments, and saying again intentionally, then sort of saying, okay, I feel as if I'm being called on a journey, and actually taking a moment, and you could do a rune reading, or you could sit in your sovereign identity, like I was suggesting for Lisa and for the Manas people that we've had. Sink back into that and say, I've been invited on a journey. I don't need to go on it. And this is something that's really important, I think, has come through for me for a lot of people who they say, I feel as if I'm called on the Northern tradition, but I've been shown this and I'm a bit wary. And I say to people, whenever they work with any deity or they go on any form of journey, there's always a choice. Even if a god says, I'm here, come and work with me, particularly in the Northern tradition, the gods respect you when you say, well, thank you very much for the offer, but actually no. Or, that's not going to happen now. So it's that sense that you might get opportunities coming up, then you go, I really feel called that way. Take the time to feel into, is this the right time for me? Do I want to do this now? Because I feel as if those moments could offer some really profound self-knowledge. They might draw you into something a bit deeper than you were expecting. And it's making sure that you're able to say to yourself, yes, I chose to do this consciously. I wasn't sort of drawn in unwittingly. I chose it. So look for opportunities and then take the moment to choose whether or not you want to do them. I hope that's helpful for you, Cheryl. Rima, when is the next masterclass? It is on Monday, the 21st of February, 7 p.m. GMT. I will post the link to join in the chat as well. Cheryl says the drumming was just whoosh. Journey kicked straight in. Oh yes, a little bit of drumming. Felicity has Perthrow. So that's again, there's a bit of a feminine energy because we've got Njord and Aegir who are connecting very strongly. We've just had Tyr as well with Tewaz, so I'm just feeling that masculine energy. Perthrow was just saying, oh, don't forget the feminine a little bit there. And it's talk for me. Whereas I've been talking a lot about the sea and the energy of the sea and the energy of the tides, Perthrow to me at this point for you is calling on the fresh waters, much more the well of weird. So it's saying there are other tides as well. There are the tides of the sea, but there are also the tides of weird. And I'm literally just seeing you gazing into a pool of water, not one that is releasing or and bringing back in. It's not that tidal energy, it's that dark energy of the well. And as I'm seeing that, I'm seeing you sitting and the dark water's coming up, and it's like lights are coming up out of the water and being offered to you. And the only way that I can describe it is almost like, imagine that when we come in for a lifetime, we come into this lifetime, we choose a particular destiny, a particular purpose. Our birth runes come in and they support us in fulfilling that heroic destiny. And I believe that we do deliberately leave behind our memories and other aspects of experience from previous lives, because we need to be fully committed to this one. And we could be overwhelmed by our memories and knowledge and experiences from the past. We wouldn't be able to weave ourselves fully into this existence with those things. But that there are times in our lives when we connect with that wisdom from previous lifetimes, or potentially from the ancestors as well. And I'm almost seeing it just to go and do that as a meditation, to sort of sit with the pool, ask for the blessings of the Disir or the Nornir, and just say, I'm ready to connect with whatever wisdom, or the word healing is coming to mind. So perhaps power, that sense of power or soul that I needs to be brought back to me at this point. So it's almost like some power retrieval work or some soul retrieval work happening through the light rising up through the dark, and then you claiming it. And you might want to ask the Disir or the Nornir to sort of help you with that claiming process. So that's quite deep for you there, Felicity. Esther, you've got Dargaz, so there's much more. Whereas Perthro, we've got that sort of, that flowing energy. Dargaz is just like, yep, I've got it, I know, I'm moving forward. I think that maybe the Ansus full moon will be important to you in connecting in maybe with some quite sudden realizations, those moments of clarity. So trust those moments of clarity. Trust the people talk about them as downloads sometimes. That's what you might experience with Dargaz. Don't be surprised if that comes up and you're like, oh, that was unexpected. Just go, okay, I'm going to go with it. Maybe record them so that you don't forget them. So really trusting that sense of knowing and not needing to know where it comes from. Dargaz is just like you are here, and then you move forward, and then you're there. And there isn't. And now I'm going to retrace that and go, where did that come from? What does it mean? It's literally just trusting your knowledge and that moment of clarity. Is there something else there for you, Trish? Maybe a little bit of a sense of, at this moment, it's important for you to be looking forwards into the future, less looking backwards into the past. It's obviously, you've got that, you've done that. You don't need to worry that you're going to forget those experiences. At the moment, the focus should be on the future, manifesting the future and moving forward. Belle, you have got Fayu. So we've covered Fayu already. Who have we covered it with? Was it Fayu? Was it Marie? So yes, we've covered Fayu. So look at what I said to Marie. You could use the Fayu meditation, the YouTube meditation that we've got that's available on the website. Really feeling that flow of any blocks that you feel to the energy of wealth, the energy of nourishment, the energy of pleasure. It's the flow of wealth. It isn't a hoard of gold over here that I've got that I can draw on anytime I like. It's literally that sense of well-being coming through you. Those serendipitous moments where you're like, I really, really want to do that thing. I can't do it. And then suddenly some money comes unexpectedly into your bank account and you're able to do it. And you're like, oh, that's the Fayu force, as opposed to a Thala, which is your accumulated store of wealth that sort of sits there and you're responsible for it. Fayu is energy that flows through you all of the time. So looking for those serendipitous moments, having a little feel into the idea of luck and imagining yourself as a lucky person. It's a really good way of thinking about it. In the Norse, we call luck Haminya. In Anglo-Saxon, it was more called Megan. And it's this idea of this sort of store of strength and luck and power, magical power flowing through you. So I just want you to imagine, and claim that for yourself. I'm a lucky person. Not, I need to now go back and list all the reasons why I'm lucky. There is a place for gratitude, but that's not what it is. It's almost like it's just, we were talking about Bacano and shape-shifting. It's that idea of what does it feel like to be a lucky person? What does it feel like to be somebody who just attracts good stuff to you? And working with the Fayu rune to increase that sense. Good morning, Jared. Suzanne, yes, you could add the Northeast rune to the lights you set on the waters. I suspect that if you do that, it would mean that at some point that energy will come back to you transformed, because it's almost like you're saying, I'm going to release something. I'm using that energy of schools to maybe cut that cord or that connection. You know, it's a really nice way to work with North is. But it might be that if there's anything that's necessary, that it will come back at a future point, that there'll be a reweaving. So it's just bearing that in mind, but not worrying about it. I think as long as you're going, yes, I release, because the Northers rune does allow us to do that too, then yes, you could put your little Northers rune onto the water and allow that to release out, which would be lovely. Hi Eileen, lovely to see you. You have got Gibo, the rune of exchange, of promises, of oath making. So again, the Ansus full moon could be really powerful for you. If there's anything that you're feeling like, I want to move forward with a project or a promise or an intention, or I'm struggling with it a little bit, the Gibo rune will help you to think about, you know, what do I need to bring in order to achieve? What support do I need? What accountability do I need? And I think it's feeling very practical at this point to sort of say, okay, literally, you know, what support might I need? So, for example, when I do my mastery program for people who've done awakening and they want to go on and they want to produce some work, or they want to take their work deeper with the runes, we've set up co-working days where we work together. And if they're not taught days, they're days when we all come together and we say, you know, what am I going to spend the next hour on? And we work together, and it's that companionship and that support that we feel, and that belief that we have in each other, and the accountability that you have so you don't go off and do something else. All of those things, it's a form of very potent collaborative support. So that's what I'm thinking that the Gibo rune is suggesting for you, is to say, okay, what support can you bring in to support your intentions, so that your Ansus full moon, when you're voicing what those intentions are and you're saying, yeah, you know, I didn't do that last month, but I really want to. The Gibo rune is reminding you, what changes can you make that more probable that you will fulfill that intention? Very practical ones. Jared, you've got Rados, you've got a lovely rhythm, and I was thinking about that in terms of the rhythm of the tide. I was talking right at the beginning, you know, about Njord and Aegir, the release and the return. And I think the Rado rune is reminding me of the idea that we can often feel as if, you know, if there's a rhythm and a cycle. Apologies, there's now a cat leaping onto the computer screen. You can see his tail. Sit down if you're going to be there. That there is a cyclical nature to the work that we do, certainly within the Northern tradition, and to the energy of exchange. It comes to with the Gibo rune that I was talking to Eileen about, this idea that you breathe in, you breathe out, you breathe in, you breathe out, and it's a cycle. But the Rado rune is saying it feels like a cycle, but remember that it's a spiral, and that we might feel as if we're in the same place, but actually we never return to the same place, because if nothing else has changed, you have changed. So I think to me it's almost saying, recognize your journey. If there are things that are coming up for you that you think, well, I've been here before, you know, frustrations, or, you know, an opportunity comes up and you're like, oh, this is a little bit of deja vu. It's sort of then sitting back for a moment and saying, but I'm different, so what am I going to bring that's going to be different to this situation now? Because Rado is the rune of the road. So it's basically saying, you know, you're never in the same place on the road, much as it might feel as if you are in the same place, because you are different and you're in a different time. So it's the spiral there. Let me see what else you've got. So Suzanne says, thank you, I was pleased to have one you after Harklands last week. Yes, I can imagine that. And Marie says, I made a new Feyre rune today and felt it made my energy flow a little more freely. Well, that's wonderful, so do keep going with that. Cheryl, I really needed that message. That's wonderful. Lisa says that resonates. Felicity, wow, seriously deep. Yeah, I know, I wasn't expecting that, was I? You never know what's going to come up with Middle Earth readings. Belle says, I had that earlier. Jared, thank you for the rhythm aspect. That's helpful for today. Great. So, have a fabulous rest of your week. Thank you to those of you. We've gone quite deep today, so we've gone over a little bit of our half hour, which I will do. You know, if there's enough of you here and you want your runes, I'm happy to do that, as long as I've got the time to work on all of them. So thank you to those of you who have stuck with it until the end. And thank you to those of you who are joining me for the recording. Wishing you health, happiness, abundance, releasing that which you no longer need and bringing lots in of what you do need into your week ahead.